As with any kind of cut, using high accuracy tools and equipment makes your initial results much better and reduces the amount of hunting you're going to have to do to perfect the angle later on. One of the things you learn by using a high accuracy tool like the bevel tilt box is just how small of a change is actually needed to get the angle that you want. After the initial cut is made, high precision tools like the Anchor 1000 SC miter gauge allow making very precise adjustments. Just as important is knowing exactly what that adjustment was, so you can go back or add to it as needed when you make your second test cuts. When the project you're making requires several pieces that are all the same length, cut at the same angle, using a gauge block on your table saw is a good way to do that. We have the blade set at 22.5 degrees to make an 8-sided piece. The first cut will just be on the end to establish the bevel. After the initial cut, we flip the piece over, bring it up to the gauge block, make the next cut. Bring it back, flip it over, put it against the gauge block, and keep repeating the process till we have 8 pieces. Now we'll have to stop once in a while to get the pieces out of the inside here. The gauge block spaces it away, but as they begin to pile up, you can still get a kickback. So we want to stop, retrieve the pieces after the blade stops, and then keep going. Now here's our 8-sided piece with just a spot of super glue to hold them together as it kept falling apart. You can see the only open spot is this one right here, and it's less than a paper width wide. Now if this was assembled with regular glue, that extra film thickness will close this up. When a workpiece get more than several inches long, a lot of times it's better to use a stop block or a work stop on a miter gauge rather than a gauge block on a rip fence. It's just easier to handle this way, and very often it's much safer. As we did before, we'll just cut the bevel on the end of the piece, but then we'll turn it around, lower the work stop, and make the cut on the other end to size the piece. When we use the miter gauge at an angle to cut a bevel or miter cut, a lot of force is put on the wood and tries to slide it down the fence. Adding the sandpaper to the face gives you a lot of traction, makes it a lot easier to hold the piece steady. Another thing that has been a huge help to me when cutting miters is to make what we call a double cut. I just draw out the miter so I know where the cut's going to be, and line that up so the blade passes just this side of it. I want to leave just a little bit of material between this cut and the line. The idea is that by taking all this material off, the blade's working only on one side when we make the final cut. That reduces a lot of the pressure it puts back on the wood and gives us a lot cleaner cut. I put the layout line so it's just off of the blade a little bit, and we'll make the first cut. Then we'll slide it over and run the blade right down that line. Taking that little extra time to make that first pass gives us a very nice, very accurate cut. This double cut procedure gets even more important as the piece gets thicker. The longer the cut you're going to make, the more important this can be.